Hi, Nick Vince here. This week on the Chattering Hour, I'm joined by the lovely Dee Wallace, and we talk about just some of the extraordinary films that she's worked on in her over 50-year career. Films such as The Hills Have Eyes, Stephen King's Cujo, The Howling, Critters, The Frighteners, and Rob Zombie's Halloween, and a little film called E.T., the Extra-terrestrial. We talk about working with animals and children and so much more. Up next on the Chattering Hour, Dee Wallace. And we're back with Dee Wallace. As well as the genre titles I've mentioned, Dee has over 250 film and TV credits to her name. She's also a motivational speaker and author, and during lockdown she was directed by her daughter Gabrielle Stone in the horror short film Stay Home. Dee, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
So I'd like to take you back to the very beginning, if I may.
Oh, dear God. Wait, do I have a memory that long? Okay, I'll try.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking you were brought up in Kansas City. Is that right?
Yep. Kansas City, Kansas.
Kansas City, Kansas.
Yes.
That's a terrible accent, Nick. What was your childhood like?
Well, it was really yin and yang. It was a real dichotomy. My my family was religious, but not zealots. We were raised Methodists.
Right.
My grandmother was one of the pillars of the church. We were extremely poor. So my mom worked all her life. My dad was an alcoholic. He would probably worked up until I was 8 or 9, maybe. And then he was just too far gone to work anymore. So my mother was a fabulous actress, which is why I became an actress, watching her move people. And I started out as baby Jesus and ended up as the Virgin Mary before I went to find my own fame and fortune, because she did all the religious plays at our church.
Right.
So it was, gosh, Dee Dee, you can do anything. You're a bright light, go out and conquer the world. And juxtaposed to, I'm afraid everybody's going to die in my house every night. So if I don't take care of everybody and save everybody, they die and then I die. It was a dramatic roller coaster.
Right.
But somehow, and largely due to my incredible mother and grandmother, I had really strong, powerful female figures.
Right.
That helped form me. And they were right. Actually, my daddy used to call me bright light. We all do, but I just came in with this light, and somehow that light won.
Right.
It won over all the drama, which is what's possible for all of us if we really are consciously creating who we want to be.
Yes. Yeah.
So in a nutshell, that was it. I was in Kansas until I was 27. I went to New York very late. I taught a year of high school, graduated from KU, and taught a year of high school and went, Mom, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And she said, go ahead and be an actress, Dee Dee, but can't you do it in Kansas? I went, I don't think so, Mom. Not the way I want to do it. So off I went. I'd never been out of Kansas in my life, and I just had this beautiful naivete and trust that I was going to be taken care of, and I always was. And here I am.
And very successful as well. So did you, I mean, were films a large part? Because obviously you've done an awful lot of films as an actress. Were films part of your growing up? Did you get to go to the cinema much when you were growing up?
I wouldn't say we got to go much.
Right.
Probably maybe twice a month, because we, again, were very particular about how and where we spent our money.
Right.
The thing that affected me the most was watching my mother perform these half-hour, what we call readings. We would call them monologues now.
Right.
And people from 4 states would come to watch her do these performances. And I literally can remember sitting there as an 8-year-old, looking around and seeing all these adult people crying. And I went, oh, I want to do that. I want to move people like my mommy does.
Right, right. And so you went on to do you went to University of Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you studying there?
I majored in theater education and with a minor in psychology and journalism.
Wow. And
all of which I use every day in my life. Yeah.
And was that, and did you go to university thinking, okay, this is the best way to become an actress? Because I know.
Oh, hell no. I went to the university because my mother said, please have something to fall back on.
Right.
So knowing her life and where that was coming from, and at that time in the 60s, women's lib was just starting, right? And so most young women picked very safe careers because our parents had come from very unsafe worlds with world wars and money problems. And so I think I felt like I kind of owed that to my mom, to give her that peace of mind. I'm a natural teacher. I love to teach.
Right.
So it wasn't anything that I hated or begrudged having to do.
Right.
But I knew ultimately it wasn't the end all and be all of where I wanted to end up. I mean, I've been teaching all my life, in school, in my own acting studio, my own dance studio. I teach in my healing work right now. So, but I think teaching is kind of like acting. You're kind of born to do it or you're not.
And it's also very much, I think, it's kind of giving a performance as well when you're actually in class.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Because you have to entertain the kids. Otherwise, they just check out.
Yeah.
You know, it's very much like being a lawyer. When you're a lawyer, you have to perform. Right. So actually, I think almost every profession ends up having a performance quality. Waiting tables, you know, you are connecting one-on-one with the people. I've done that too. Yeah. That you are helping and serving, and you have to have a certain energy, hopefully, that makes their day better and their experience at your restaurant better.
Right, right. So so you've left university, you're teaching drama. What was your first professional acting job?
In New York, my first professional acting job was in The Stepford Wives. And I played the German maid, and I had one line, which was, "Ja." But it was a real experience watching all those three actresses and how differently they worked. It was eye-opening to me how a set was run and how all the different personalities were taken care of. And, I got that because I was running out of money. And so I went to interview for a receptionist position. And Brian, the director, kept walking out, and he'd look at me and he'd walk out and he'd look at me. And finally he came over and he said, "Are you an actress?" And I went, "I am." He said, "Do you want to be in a movie?" I went, "I do." And I thought, can it be this easy? So I didn't have very much to do, but I had a credit, right? And I didn't do any more film work except for commercials. I did in New York hundreds of commercials in the 2 years that I was there. And but the majority of my work, I was also started out as a dancer. So I got my equity card and no, I got my SAG card from commercials. I got my equity card from doing the Milliken Show.
Right.
And the Milliken Show was the biggest industrial show. All the best gypsies in New York did the Milliken Show. So I went to the open call and wearing my little homemade dress that my grandma had made me from Kansas. And they left me and they hired me. And I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. And not only was I paid more money than I'd ever made in my life, but we got to keep all our clothes. And then I did a lot of industrial shows. And one of those shows was the Oldsmobile show. I even remember part of the song. It was a tie a yellow ribbon round an Oldsmobile. And so we danced our way across America to California. And I ran into one of the guys who used to be in my acting class. And he was signed with Brett Adams. And I said, "I'll get you an appointment with my commercial agent that I already have out here if you'll get me an appointment with Brett Adams." And it worked. And we both got signed. And, that was kind of the start of an actual career.
Right. I just love the idea of you dancing to tie a yellow ribbon around the old
Yeah. Well, I also danced as a Koogle Peanut across America. Koogle Peanut with googly eyes. Ooh! Yeah. Why I remember these stupid things, don't ask me.
But sorry, I'm just trying to get that image, process the image of you.
We had great big eyeballs on us, on hot pink, very high up cut costumes. Hey, it was a paycheck. What can I say?
Oh, absolutely. Not judging at all. I just, I think I once danced for, it was the launch of a Ford car in the UK. We came on, for all the salespeople, did the show for the salespeople. And I remember that nothing as glamorous as that in terms of costume.
Yeah.
No, I mean, move us on a bit to your first horror film, and that is The Hills Have Eyes in 1977 with Wes Craven. How did that come about?
I auditioned. I went in and auditioned and had a call back and got the role. Starting out at the ripe age of 29 or 30, playing a mother already, right? And I had the film that I had done right before that was a religious film that I did with Grant Goody called All the King's Horses. And it was about a battered wife of an alcoholic, a subject I knew quite well.
Right.
Not that I ever saw my mom get hit,
Right.
but verbally berated every night. And so it kind of sums up really the dichotomy of who I am. I play half my life I'm playing in horror films, and the other half of my life I'm healing people from fear. Works for me.
Right, right. What did you think of presumably you knew it was a horror film going in when you did the audition, but what did you think of the script when you?
Oh, I thought the script was great, but I was a starting actress.
Right.
It was a job. It was the lead in a film, right?
Right.
I didn't care. I didn't even think to ask that all of us were staying in one motorhome in the Mojave Desert during shooting, and the bathroom broke. I mean, it was challenging. It was, I think, within 3 miles of where SAG they would have had to put us up if it were 3 miles further. So finally, the fourth night, I came home probably around 2 a.m. And Christopher, my husband, looked at me. He said, "You're not driving home anymore. We're going to get you a hotel room." I said, "But I'm only making scale." He says, "I don't care, honey. It's too dangerous." So for the rest of the shoot, I purchased my own motel room, a very cheap motel room. But he was right. It was not safe to work those grueling scenes that we had and then drive 2 hours home at 2 a.m. in the morning. And get up the next day and do it all over again. And then, we'd go from shooting days into shooting nights. And yeah, it was challenging. I spent a lot of time in my car on that shoot.
What was WES CRAVEN like? I mean, apart from the sheer physical toughness of it, what was WES CRAVEN like to work
Wes
with?
is great. He's pretty much like everybody says the Wes I worked with. He was a college professor, and he was very quiet, very studious, very soft, knew what he wanted, but didn't, like, when I think of Joe Dante, had a presence, right? I don't remember his presence that much, which is interesting to me. Maybe it's just because it was so long ago, but I remember Louis Teague's presence on the set, and certainly Stevens and Peter Jackson's, but I just remember thinking it was a really kind guy.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, because he kind of has that, whenever I've seen him interviewed, and he has that, as you say, very professorial demeanor about him.
Well, that's who he is.
Right.
But
And
very kind, very kind.
You then went on to do what I consider, I was watching it for the first time this afternoon, Blake Edwards' 10.
Yes, this was your first time seeing it?
I'd never seen it before. It was just one of those. Oh my
God, it's such a wonderful movie.
I think when it came out, I was kind of like, do I really want to watch a film about a guy having a middle-age crisis? What's to attract me to this? And I was like,
Dudley Moore.
Yeah.
That's what's to attract you. Oh my God, I so loved working with Dudley. He was the sweetest, kindest, funniest. I would just walk on the set and hope I could keep up with Dudley, because you never knew what Dudley was going to do. I swear to God, it was right at the beginning when we were starting to use monitors and the
Right.
director wasn't right. So Blake was on the soundstage next to us, and we finished doing our first scene, and nobody talked until Blake talked. And everybody's waiting, and he went, well, I don't know who the hell wrote it, but we're going to print it. And of course, he wrote it. But Dudley had just gone everywhere, and I had to follow him, right? So it was an interesting, safe exploration into being free on the set.
Because I have to say, there is that old cliche, there are no small parts, only small actors. You're seeing, particularly the bit, I'm beginning to well up a little bit here, the scene in the bathroom in front of the mirror, as one of the most heartrending things I think I've watched in a while.
Oh, thank you.
Because you nailed it, Dee. It was just like, it is only, I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, scenes really, because there's you in the, being picked up in the bar, in the bedroom, the following morning, walking on the beach.
On the beach. Oh my God. Yeah, I got to do some comedy, which I was really happy about too.
Yeah. And then you were talking about Dudley Moore improvising, watching him play piano. Just absolutely
I
beautiful.
mean, that close up was not in it. They'd already broken the camera to move it. And I was just sitting there watching Dudley play, which he did often between takes. And it just moved me so much. And Blake turned around and looked at me and he went, everybody stop, bring the cameras back. We're going to get a close up of me. You see, that's a good director. And that's happened with me in all the great directors I've worked with.
Right.
They're not so freaking locked into an idea that they can't see a moment when it happens. Same thing happened on ET with the dinner table scene. And when he says he's in Mexico with Sally, well, I wasn't supposed to well up. I wasn't supposed to leave the table. And all of a sudden that hit me so hard. And I remember thinking, I don't want the kids to see me cry. So I got up and Steven came over and he says, Dee, why did you get what happened? And I explained to him and he looked at me and went, guys, I need you to build an addition of the kitchen right over here. I need a sink where we can take her to, and I need running water. And you got a half an hour, and they built it. And so he took me over to that sink so he could turn me into that big close up where I say he hates Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's the magic, you see, when everybody has the freedom to do what hits them, what inspires them, what takes them over. I know on ET, Alan Davio even would throw in wonderful suggestions that would ignite something in me. It was every set I've been on. I mean, the Howling, the last night we had the set where we were on the ranch and we had to film the big barn where all the werewolves, and it was the last night and our generator broke. And do you know, everybody got together and pulled their car up and turned their headlights on, and that's how we lit that scene.
Wow.
And it's magical.
It's extraordinary. Yeah.
It has a whole feeling that's different and eerie and weird, But that's what I mean. You have to, the magic for me is not knowing, is letting everything happen. And when things hit me and I don't know they're coming, I know I'm really where I'm supposed to be then.
Wow. Wow. That's extreme, because I was going to ask you about The Howling, which I have seen before, but watched again this afternoon. Sorry, I watched it yesterday and then went back and watched it again.
It really holds up, doesn't it?
Holds up extraordinarily. Funnily enough, I think the last 5 minutes of the film in the days of fake news and what can we believe that's going on is
Yeah.
incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, there are lots of other things that I love about that movie, and there are the sexiness and the sheer viscerality. I think I've just made up a word. How viscerality? It is viscerous.
Well, and you know, a lot of that, so much of it is owed to Joe Dante. He just had a vision, and all of the cartoons and the old movie clips, he ended up paying for himself because the studio didn't want to spring the money. And it really elevates the film so very much, you know.
Yeah, no, it really does. And for those of you who haven't seen it, go out and watch The Howling.
You know, everybody thinks I said, well, I'll do the film if you hire my husband. I had no weight to do that back then. I had to go in and audition and have a callback. And then Dan Blatt, our wonderful producer, called me and said, Dee, we've got a great cast lined up, but we just can't find your husband yet. And I said, well, exactly what are you looking for? And when he explained it, I went, well, shit, I'm living with a guy. But as soon as I had that thought, I went, oh, don't say that, Dee. They'll never hire him. So I said, you know, Dan, I worked with this actor, Christopher Smith or Christopher Stone or something on Chips. He might be really right for this. So they went out and they found him on their own and called him in, and he got the part. And the next day, Dan calls and I pick up the phone and he goes, Dee, and I went, hey, Dan. And he says, I'm sorry, I must have called the wrong number. I was, you know, that actor you recommended, we hired him, and I called to talk to him, and I went, no, you've got the right number, Dan. And he went, pause. Oh, shit. I said, don't worry, we won't gang up on you. You'll only have to get one trailer instead of two. And ultimately, he was very happy that Chris was on board, because in those days, sometimes in those really hysterical scenes, I really got into it and went off into La La Land. And Chris was very good at bringing me back.
Well, it's that thing of feeling safe when you're feeling comfortable enough and safe enough and secure enough as an actor to go to those places during performance.
Yeah, and you know, we worked entirely different ways. Chris broke everything down. He worked on beats. I don't do any of that. I read the script and I use the method that my mentor, Charles Conrad, taught me, which is getting your energy so high you literally bypass your mind. So you're kind of channeling the character. And we got to the scene in bed where he's supposed to haul off and slap me. And Dan says, well, I know you guys must have worked on this last night. You lived together. Let me see what you got. And Chris looked at him and he said, I'm sorry, my leading lady doesn't rehearse. and Joe just looked at us, and I went, I know he knows how to do a stage slap, and I know how to take one. And if he hits me, he doesn't get any sex for months. So it'll be fine. And I think we got it in one take, you know.
I just wanted to I love that. I love that.
Nice to hear the inside stories, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to bring you back to ET, which obviously you've touched upon. Working with the children, what was it like? I mean, you had very young children to work. How old was Drew Barrymore when she was
I
doing?
think she was 4, 4 or 6. She was young enough that she still didn't distinguish between fantasy and reality. For example, we were getting ready to do the scene where E.T.'s dying and all the doctors are in. And I went to get her because I'm very motherly with all the kids that I work with. And I said to her, Drew, now you remember E.T.'s just acting like we're acting. So he's not really dying. He's just acting that way. And the doctors are acting like they're being mean to him. And she looked at me and she said, I know, Dee, do you think I'm stupid? So I picked her up. We walked onto the set, got in place. She took one look at E.T. and went, he's dying, he's dying. Right. And I see Stephen going, roll it. And I'm going, well, shit, get into it, Dee, right? I mean, you just had to always, like Cujo, I mean, forget it. You always had to be on. You always have to be on with kids because you never know when their magic's going to happen like that, right? And so it just was magical again. But that's how, I mean, we would look over and Drew would be talking to E.T. who was in the corner. So Stephen had 2 guys on ET all the time, being able to nod and blink, you know, and move his head back and forth because Drew would be talking to him and we wanted to create the illusion for her that he was alive.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Extraordinary. And you just touched on Cujo, and I do want to talk to you about Cujo. Because again, I mean, I read this is one of your favorite
It is my
films.
favorite film.
It is your favorite.
I just feel like I went as far as I could go, as truthfully as I could go there.
And what was the experience? I mean, how did you approach it on the day? Say again?
The experience shooting it was hell. That's what it was. I mean, it was relentless. It was every scene. How much do I break down? When do I break down? How do I break down? It was, and you know, I'm working with a 6-year-old kid and a dog. So when the kid and the dog work, they print it. So Dee has to be on balls out every single solitary scene. I was exhausted. They actually treated me for exhaustion at the end of the picture.
Wow.
All my adrenals were blown. I still to this day take raw adrenal to keep my adrenals pumped up because I just completely depleted them. A lot of people don't understand that your body doesn't know you're acting. Your body goes through the same chemical reactions and creations as if you are really in fight or flight. So when you're doing a film where you're in fight or flight the entire film, a lot of your physical body gets taxed, especially the way I work. Not so sure that's true with George Clooney, the way he works, because he can get out of a scene and crack a joke. Yeah, not the way I work. For me, doesn't work.
It is interesting. And we Courtney Gaines was one of my previous guests.
Oh, I love Courtney.
And he was talking about an actor who he's worked with who can just turn it on, turn it off.
Scout Taylor Compton. She can do a highly emotional scene and then go play with the kids on the set. I'm better at it. I mean, back when I did 10, years after I did 10, my mom and I were talking about how I had learned to not bring my characters home with me. And she said, wait here just a minute, I want to show you something. And she went back and got a letter that I had written to her during 10. And I read it and I went, oh my God, Mom, Mary Lewis wrote this. I didn't write this. She said, I know. I just saved it. So someday I could show you how far gone you were. But you know, it rocks my boat to let them take me over. And I have learned in order to take care of myself, I have to leave them at the set when I come home.
Right, right, right. Yeah, for your own self-protection. Now, I have to ask you,
Uh-oh.
after Cujo, are you okay with dogs? Do you get on well with dogs?
Oh my God, yes. I love dogs. I have a little rescue now
Right.
called Freedom. All my dogs have been rescues. But those dogs were so well trained. They were St. Bernards. They were so well trained to go after toys. We literally had to tie their tails down because I think there's a couple of shots that they left their tails wagging because it was really ominous. But they were trained within an inch of their lives.
Right.
And
Right.
and always, so it was all a big game to them. One dog, like they'd call action, and the trainer, Carl Miller, would go, dig for your toy. And he'd go, right? And his tail was wagged because he was going to get his toy. He was going to get his toy. So as soon as we called cut, they were just docile. And unfortunately, we couldn't interact with them very much because they had to listen to the trainer.
Sure.
But when they got ferocious and they got this close to you, it was pretty damn easy to get into that emotion. The scene where he knocks me down and gets on top of me, right? Okay, so they had a medic on the scene at all times for the dogs and for us, but for the dogs.
Mostly for the dog.
A vet. And so they sedated the dog. And then they put the dog on top of me. Now, the dog wasn't out all the way. And I could hear him going, and I'm already like 3 sheets to the wind into this emotion that I have to do in the scene. And I said, are you sure he's out? Are you sure he's out? He's out, Dee. And then Louis Teague, our director, goes, can you raise him up and down like you're fighting him? So I'm bench pressing this 150-pound dog that's not out all the way in total trust, right? That he's not gonna wake up and eat me in the emotional state that I was in. So people just have no idea went into making that movie. The scene where I break the back window, Louis comes up to me and says, Dee, we're going to shoot this in slow motion. So I really, really need you to hit the window hard. You can't break it, it's treated. Yeah. So we had rehearsed the whole thing all the way up to me taking him up to the house, just so we didn't get locked into anything, right? So we'd rehearse the whole thing. Well, on the third hit, I broke the window and I don't hear cut. So I crawl over the glass, and this part of my head is going, get the kid, you've got to get the kid up to the house. And this part of me is going, don't drag him over the glass. The glass wasn't here when you rehearsed it. The glass, you've got to pick him up, get the kid to the house. Don't take him. I'm like going in and out of Donna and Dee during that scene. And I get him out of the car. I still don't hear cut. And so I keep going up to the house. And as soon as I get up to the house, they yell cut. And Dan runs up. He goes, "Oh my God, are you all right?" Well, I'd slipped my arm and it was bleeding. And he called the medic and they put some flesh colored bandage around it. And Dan said, "Do you think you could do one more take just in case we didn't get that one?" But, and so sure, yeah. And then we went to see the doctor. The big scene in the car where Cujo attacks me. Brilliant editing. It was me and the stuntman and the stunt woman and the real dog. Now, again, the dog was trained to go after this toy that was put around her neck. And when she leaned forward, that was the dog's cue to lunge toward her. And when she pulled back, the dog would automatically pull back. That's how well these dogs were trained.
Wow.
So I had begged Dan. I said, "Let me do this. I can do this. I can do the whole scene with a real dog. I can do this." And he was gonna, and at the last minute, he said, "You know, Dee, you're the money. And if something happens, we're down and the shoot's dead." So I did my part, and the stunt woman got in and did her part. And at the end, Lewis says, "Cut, we got it." And she went, "Great." And nobody had a hand on the dog. And so the dog leaped forward and bit the tip of her nose off. Wasn't the dog's fault. He was doing what he was supposed to do. So anyway, they took her to the hospital and they sewed it back on, and she looks gorgeous. She looks absolutely gorgeous. So it was all okay. But, people don't really realize everything that can happen to you on shoots like this. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully the next one I'd like to talk about, which just looked a lot more fun, which was Critters.
Oh, Critters. Oh my God. We had so much fun on Critters, although we had to work mostly nights. But we would all be ready to do the scene, and we'd be in our emotion, and then we'd hear the director go, "Okay, roll them in." And all the guys were over there. Literally, most of the critters were just big hairy balls that they rolled across the set. They hadn't built the big critter yet. So you only saw the eyes and the head in that one scene through the window. It was crazy. It was a crazy shoot. I love that movie, though. I think it's so well done.
It's so much fun. And those rolling critters are incredibly effective and actually really terrifying, because actually much more so than if they were walking, or, just because
terrifying,
the speed at which they come.
Funny.
Yeah.
They're funny too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love it when that one critter gets shot and he goes, "Fuck." I mean, that's just, come on. Yeah. That's brilliant.
What the next film I'd like us to move on to, and I think was just a complete, because I think we've been talking about you're playing mothers mostly in the ones that we've been talking about. And the next one I'd like to talk about is The Frighteners.
Oh.
Which was a very different change of tone in terms of the sort of character that you were playing.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to do it. I mean, what actress doesn't want to play this simpy, ugly, weak victim that morphs into this strong mother of a character, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I read that and I had to go in and audition, and I just went for it. I did all the physicality. Thank God for my dancing. And I finished and I said, "Mr. Jackson, I just want to say, picture me with black hair, because I can't do this role like this. And I think they booked me before I even got home for that.
Ah.
And working with Peter Jackson was just that whole experience. And a lot of people don't know I lost my husband while I was filming. That first he had a heart attack, so they flew me back, and he was okay. And I flew back to finish the film, and 4 days later, a blood clot hit his heart, and he was gone. And so I had to fly back and put on his service. And Peter said, "Dee, we never thought you'd be back." And but I wasn't raised that way. My mom always taught me, you take a job, you finish that job. And I flew back. Seriously, I didn't know where I was half the time. New Zealand's halfway across the world, and I'd flown it 4 times in 2 weeks. And the production, of course, took care of all my flights and everything. They said, "Don't worry, Dee, you can settle up with us at the end." Well, I just figured I had a good film, but I didn't have any money because everything was going to be spent on those flights. And I went into accounting to settle up with them at the end. And she said, "Oh no, Peter's just going to take care of this for you, Dee." That's the kind of guy Peter Jackson
Wow.
is. And
Wow.
I mean, I watched him from the best boy all the way through the producers. If anybody had a problem or an issue, it was addressed and it was respected and listened to, and something was done about it and rectified if it was in Peter's ability to do that. Made a big impression on me.
Right. There was one other director I'd like to talk to you about, because I know you've done about 3 at least films with them. That's Rob Zombie.
Yeah. I love the guy. Love him, love him, love him. Talk about giving you freedom on the set. Rob is like, "What's your idea?" "Okay." I mean, not to say that he doesn't know exactly what he wants, but he also knows that if he gives you the freedom, everybody the freedom to bring in their best stuff, that he gets what he wants, sometimes in a really unique way that nobody ever saw on their own, but together, the magic is just amazing. I love working with Rob.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments from Lords of Salem is when you pick up the iron frying pan and take it to poor Bruce Davison. But it's just the look on your face to you, and it's just like, so fed up with this guy.
Yeah, a lot of that too was improvisation.
Right.
I believe I have the line, "Oh, that felt good."
Yes.
I think that's what it is. All improv. That was all improv. And 3 from Hell with Miss Sherry. Oh boy, did we have fun doing that. He sent me that script and I read it and I went, "Oh my God, I really want to do this part, Rob, but I have to dye my hair brown. I have to look really ugly. I think she's got glasses, maybe hormone glasses. I need to look like dowdy and shitty." And he went, "Yeah, okay." And it just worked. He actually had a critic call him and say, "Rob, I'm reviewing your film and I really love it. Did you cut Dee Wallace out? Because her name's in the credits, but I don't see her in the film." He said, "Oh, she's there. Watch it again." watch it again. And he wrote back and he said, my God, I had no idea that was her. And I thought, that's the best compliment you can give an actor, right? Is that we so become somebody else.
Yeah. 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 No, absolutely. I had it happen to me once in my career. And it was just like, oh, did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great feedback, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You bet.
Now, I want to, because we're coming to the end, rapidly moving towards the end of the hour, and something I did want to talk about, and you mentioned earlier on, is motivational speaking and teaching, and you've written. When did this become a real part? Because you talked about the two things, that are parts of your life.
Yeah.
When did this really become important
Oh,
to
gosh.
you?
About 30 years ago now. I've written 5 books. I just finished my 6th book. It's not out yet. It's called The Art of Self-Creation. I have a weekly radio show that's on every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Pacific Standard Time. I do webinars and I do private sessions. I have 4 or 5 private sessions a day.
Wow.
Where I'm a clairaudient channel, and my great gift that I've been given is that I'm able to listen to words and reach into people's energy and hear what their blocks are and when those blocks were created in their lives. And what I want people to realize, give them a little insight here, is how we think of ourselves and how we think of ourselves in the world and how the world works pretty much complete in our brains by 8 years old. That's science. Right. And so whatever you were taught or whatever you were modeled in your early childhood, the beliefs that you've created from then, you have built your life on. So if you're wondering why you keep running into the same walls, or why you can't expand your money, or why you keep attracting the same asshole to be with, go back to your early childhood. You will get a lot of insight. I have a really great TED Talks on YouTube.
Yeah.
That you should check out if you're interested in looking into this further. So it happened because when Chris died, I kind of fell to my knees and I said, I don't want to be pissed off. I don't want to be a victim.
Right.
I want a way we can heal ourselves. And like, bam, I got my first message.
Right.
So, and it's just expanded and expanded from that.
Right. Well, I was watching the TED Talk earlier on today.
Nice.
It is like, in the TED Talk, you talk about 5 years old and the research that have been done on this, and I'll make sure there's a link when we put this up on YouTube. We can link to that as well. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was you've recently produced a short film called Stay Home.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that, please.
Well, I had this idea, a lot of people when the pandemic hit went, oh no, I won't be able to work. I won't be able to do anything. I know from my work, you've got to get up every day and say, what can I create? I am vital. What can I create today? And I got this idea to do a horror film, a short. It's about 20 minutes. Just for the fans, just to give them back something. So I called Scout Taylor Compton and Danielle Harris and Kane Hodder and Barbara Crampton, and they said, we're in, Dee. And my daughter and Chris Heck co-directed it. And we all filmed our own stuff in our own homes. And it's the horror version, of course. You know, in the pandemic, you're safer if you stay home. Well, not in our movie. And it's just gotten really great reviews. You can find it on YouTube. And yeah, I'm just really proud of it. I'm really, really proud of it.
It's and the UK, that we have a thing called Staged, with a couple of actors, David Tennant and Michael Sheen, playing versions of themselves. Again, it's amazing what has come out, you know, what creativity.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's extraordinary, you know, and the stuff that people have actually been able to create in these challenging circumstances.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about that before. I should look forward to checking that out. Now, before I let you go, if I may, I'd just like to ask you some questions that I ask everybody.
Oh, dear God, I'm so bad at these. All right, I'll give it a shot.
Okay, so I've titled it, it's called The Luggage in the Crypt. And it's this idea of, you know, Egyptian pharaohs and just what you would like to have with you on your next journey, basically, on your next big journey. So if I said, okay, and it's an impossible question to answer, I guess, but if you had to choose a film that you'd like to, you know, take with you, what would your favorite film be that?
Oh, a film to take with me. Oh my God. Well, it would have to be something up and inspiring and with a really positive perspective on life. I don't know. E.T. wouldn't be bad. The Wizard of Oz wouldn't be bad. Just something joyous and positive.
Yeah.
As my intention to take into the next world. And for sure, I would have a dog. Have to have a dog.
Have to have a dog.
I have to have a dog wherever I go.
That's great. What about a book? What book would you take?
I would take. Can I have two books?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I would take Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. Okay. And I would take Mind to Matter by Dawson Church.
Oh, these are completely new to me. These.
Oh my gosh. You want to change your life, read those two books.
Okay.
One of them comes from the creation process from the religious point of view, and the other one is a scientist who brings religion, spirituality, and science all together. And it's both books changed my life. The third book would probably be Ramtha the White Book.
Okay.
And maybe one of mine.
And what about an album, music?
Oh, the 60s. I would take a compilation of this best 60s music.
So we're talking Beatles and Mamas and Papas.
Beach Boys, Mamas and Papas. Yeah.
This sounds like my playlists. Yeah.
Yeah. All the great music that we just had fun to, instead of some of the laborious, angry music that we have today.
Yeah. It was a very joyous time, the 60s. I was 12 when it ended. It was a great time to be a kid. It was a great time to be a kid. It was. Yeah.
It was a time of innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to get that back.
Yeah, and but also a time of innocence, but also a time of struggle and civil rights and fight. You know, really strong fighting for what was right and peace and love. Okay, great choice. A piece of visual art, a statue, a painting.
A picture. Sorry. See, that's one of those moments that I hope to capture on film. A picture of my daughter.
Oh, Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely
My
perfect.
soulmate.
Oh, bless. Bless. Will you yes. Dee, this is our hour. And I have to say, this has just been so incredibly inspiring.
Oh, thank you. I've had a great deal of fun looking back on my entire career. Hopefully to continue going.
Oh,
I've got 3 or 4 films coming out when and if films come out again.
I was going to say, is there anything you talked about doing the lockdown stuff and so on? Is there anything else set in stone at the moment, or just is it stuff?
Well, I just finished an arc on a really nice television show, but I have not been given permission to talk about it yet.
Right.
Although I think my episode airs in 2 weeks, so I have to email my agent and ask if I can talk about it now. And I'm in talks with 3 people about films now. So there's if you want to create more in your life, check out some of my work. I'm a pretty darn prolific creator.
You really are. I know the numbers. Yes, no, absolutely.
And if anybody's interested in channeling, on February, I think it's 23rd or 24th, I'm doing a whole webinar on how to channel.
Okay. Okay. Well, again, we'll we'll make sure we've got a link to the website. If you let me know, because Yosh, this is going to be broadcast on Thursday of next week.
Perfect.
If you let me know what the TV show is beforehand,
I will. I will know by
then. I'll put it across the bottom of the
sure.
screen. I'll put it up across the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
Dee, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for how well prepared you were. It's so refreshing to do an interview with somebody who's so well prepared. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Bye.
Blessings, everybody. Bye.
My thanks again to Dee Wallace, and the links to her website and the short film and the TED Talk are in the description. Join me next week, and in the meantime, stay safe and well.